Tea for Two. An Alphabet Sweethearts Romance. Written by Susanne Ash. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 1. Willa. The brass key feels warm in my palm as I unlock the door to apartment 2B. After 3 months of having the upstairs to myself, I'm finally getting a tenant for the second apartment I carved out of my childhood home. Here we are, I say, pushing open the door with perhaps a bit too much enthusiasm. Welcome to your new home. Lucas Wilder steps inside with the cautious movements of someone who's been burned before. He's taller than I expected, all lean angles and quiet intensity. Dark brown hair peeks out from under a worn baseball cap, and his stormy gray eyes take in every detail like he's cataloging escape routes. It's furnished, he says, his voice carrying the faintest hint of surprise. I hope that's okay. I figured you might appreciate not having to worry about buying furniture. I twist my hands in my vintage floral apron, suddenly second-guessing every decorating choice. Everything about him seems carefully controlled, from his rigid shoulders to his hands shoved deep in worn jean pockets. I lead him through the apartment. The kitchen stocked with basics. The cozy bedroom with its garden views. The bathroom has plenty of fresh towels. He nods approval at each room with a simple "it's fine," clearly not one for excessive praise. There's a little balcony off the living room, I continue. Great for morning coffee or evening tea. Tea, he says, something almost wry in his tone. Well, I do own a tea parlor. Occupational hazard. I laugh, tucking a wayward honey blonde curl behind my ear. Speaking of which, you're welcome to come down anytime for a cup. I'm always testing new blends. He moves to the window, looking down at Main Street where neighbors call out greetings and kids ride bikes around the fountain. I notice his hands, ink-stained fingertips, a small callus on his right middle finger. It's very. He pauses, active. It can seem overwhelming at first, I admit, following his gaze to where Hazel Elliott chats with Mr. Caldwell near the community center. But it's a good kind of busy. Caring busy. He doesn't respond, just continues watching with an expression I can't read. There's something almost haunted about the way he holds himself. What kind of work do you do? I ask, trying to fill the silence. His jaw tightens. Writing. The single word is clearly meant to end that line of questioning, but something about the way he says it tickles at the back of my mind like a half-remembered song. Juniper Falls is perfect for writers, I say. We have novel sips. It's a coffee shop and bookstore combined. There are poetry nights, book clubs. If anything, he looks more uncomfortable. I prefer to work alone. Of course. Heat creeps up my neck. I should let you get settled. I hand him the key, noting how he takes it without our fingers touching. Rent includes utilities. Parking spot number 2 around back. My apartment's right next door if you need anything. Next door, he repeats, and I can't tell if he's pleased or horrified. I'm a very quiet neighbor, I say quickly. Though I do get up around 5:30 for the morning rush. I'm usually up early anyway, he says, and it's the first thing that sounds remotely personal. Are you a morning person too? Most writers I know are either. The walls slam back up so fast I can practically see them. I should get my things from the car. Of course. Welcome to Juniper Falls, Lucas. I hope you find what you're looking for here. His gray eyes meet mine for just a moment, and I catch a glimpse of something vulnerable underneath all that control. Thank you, Willa. The way he says my name sends an unexpected flutter through my chest, but he's already turning toward the door. Downstairs in the tea parlor, I'm surrounded by the comforting scents of bergamot and chamomile, but I can't stop thinking about my mysterious new tenant. There's definitely something familiar about him, something that nags at me like a word on the tip of my tongue. I pull my favorite mug from the shelf and reach for my contemplation blend. Perfect for puzzling through the mystery of Lucas Wilder. Because something tells me there's a lot more to my quiet new neighbor than he's letting on. 20 minutes later, I'm still staring at the ceiling when the tea parlor bell chimes. I know those footsteps. They are the purposeful stride of someone who's been walking these floors for 65 years. Willa, what's got you looking like you're trying to solve world hunger? Dad's voice carries the warm authority that comes from 40 years of running a successful small business. Even in retirement, Trey Merritt can spot trouble from across a room. I glance up from where I'm arranging tomorrow's tea display for the third time. Just thinking. Dangerous habit. He settles onto his favorite stool at the counter, the one with the slightly wobbly leg that he refuses to let me fix. I take it the new tenant moved in? Lucas Wilder. He's a writer. I fidget with the Moonlight Dreams blend label, trying to get it perfectly straight. He's a private person. A bit intense, if you ask me. Dad's eyebrows rise with barely contained amusement. And you tried to welcome him with tea and sunshine, didn't you? Heat floods my cheeks. I offered him a cup. He declined. Let me guess. You also told him about novel sips and probably half the town's history in the span of 10 minutes? I was being friendly. Sweetheart, you were trying to win over a storm cloud with sunshine. Dad's laugh is gentle but knowing. Some people come to small towns to disappear, not to join the community picnic committee. I slump against the counter, deflated. I just wanted him to feel welcome. It's what we do here. It's what you do, he corrects, reaching over to pat my flour-dusted hand. Always have, even as a little girl. Remember how you used to leave cookies for the mail carrier? The memory makes me smile despite my bruised ego. Mr. Mason loved those cookies. He did. And so did half the town when you started that tradition. Dad's expression grows thoughtful. Though I have to say, this tea blend obsession of yours is getting a bit too creative. My spine straightens. What's that supposed to mean? Moonlight Dreams? Serenity Steeps? He gestures to the display I've been fussing with. In my day, when I ran this place, we sold Earl Grey and English breakfast. People knew what they were getting. Times change, Dad. People want experiences now, not just caffeine. I can hear the defensive edge creeping into my voice. My blends tell stories. Stories, he repeats, and I can't tell if he's impressed or concerned. Your mother always said you had an active imagination. Before I can respond, the bell chimes again, and Mom appears with perfect timing, as if summoned by the mention of her name. Lillian Merritt moves through the tea parlor with the easy familiarity of someone who's spent decades listening to the town's stories over countless cups of tea. What stories are we talking about? She asks, settling beside Dad with the kind of grace that comes from years of practice. Her silver hair is perfectly styled despite the mountain humidity, and she's wearing her favorite reading glasses on a chain. Willa's new tenant wasn't impressed by her hospitality, Dad explains. And I was just mentioning that some of her tea names are a bit fanciful. Mom shoots him a look that could wither roses. Trey Merritt, you hush. Willa's creativity is exactly what this place needed. I'm not saying it's bad, Dad protests. I'm just saying that when I ran this parlor for 40 years. You sold the same 6 blends and called it a day, Mom finishes. Which was fine for your generation. But nowadays people expect more. I watch this familiar dance between my parents with a mixture of affection and exasperation. They've been having variations of this conversation since I took over the parlor 6 months ago. Look at this place, Mom continues, gesturing around the shop with obvious pride. The evening events, the seasonal decorations, the custom blends for special occasions. We're booked solid most weekends now. We were always busy, Dad grumbles, but there's no real heat in it. Busy with the same 20 customers who've been coming here since the Carter administration. Mom pulls out her knitting. A soft blue scarf that's been growing longer by the day. Willa's brought in young families, tourists, people from 3 towns over. That steeped in romance Valentine's promotion? Sold out in 2 days. I feel a warm glow at the praise, even as part of me wonders what my mysterious new tenant would think of heart-shaped tea sachets. Speaking of romance, Mom says with the casual tone that always means trouble, what's this new tenant like? Single? Mom. I'm just asking. You're 32, sweetheart. It wouldn't hurt to. He's not interested in making friends, let alone anything else. I turn back to my tea display, hoping to end this line of conversation. He wants to be left alone to write. Mom's knitting needles click thoughtfully. What kind of writing? He didn't say. Just writing. I remember the careful way he said it, like the word itself was a shield. There's something familiar about him, though. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe he's famous, Mom suggests. You know how these creative types are. Always running off to small towns to find themselves or write the great American novel. Dad snorts. Or to hide from their ex-wives. Trey. What? I'm just saying, a man that age who shows up in a town like ours without any connections usually has a reason. I think about Lucas's careful movements, the way he catalogued escape routes, and wonder if Dad might be right. But there was something in those gray eyes when he said my name. Not the look of a man running from love, but maybe from something else entirely. Well, whatever his story is, Mom says firmly, Willa did the right thing by trying to make him feel welcome. That's what neighbors do. Even if they're not interested in being neighborly? I ask. Especially then. She looks up from her knitting with the kind of wisdom that comes from decades of small-town living. Sometimes the people who push hardest against kindness are the ones who need it most. Dad reaches for one of the sample cookies I keep on the counter. It's my latest experiment with lavender shortbread. Just don't go making it your personal mission to crack his shell, Willa. Some people prefer their privacy. I know that. I do know that. But I also know what it looks like when someone's carrying a weight they can't quite manage alone. There was something sad about him. Lonely. Lonely and wanting to be left alone aren't mutually exclusive, Mom observes. Sometimes lonely people think solitude is safer than risking more hurt. The truth of that statement settles in my chest like a perfectly steeped cup of tea. Bitter and sweet and exactly what I needed to hear. I'll respect his boundaries, I promise, and I mean it. Mostly. But I'm still going to leave a welcome basket by his door tomorrow morning. Nothing invasive. Some muffins and a small sampler of tea. Dad shakes his head with fond exasperation. You're incorrigible. She's perfect, Mom corrects, reaching over to smooth down a particularly rebellious curl that's escaped my bun. Tea stains and all. I look around the parlor, at the mismatched vintage teacups, the hand-lettered menu boards, the cozy reading nook I created in the corner, and feel the familiar surge of pride mixed with terror that comes with following your own vision. Maybe Lucas Wilder won't appreciate my quirky blends or my tea-stained aprons. But that doesn't mean I have to stop being who I am.
Chapter 2. Lucas. The cursor blinks at me like an accusation. I've been staring at this blank document for 2 hours, and the only thing I've managed to type is my name. Not even my real name. Just W.R. Blake at the top of the page, a reminder of who I'm supposed to be when the words aren't coming. The apartment is quiet except for the soft sounds drifting up from the tea parlor below. Gentle conversation, the clink of porcelain, the occasional laugh that somehow manages to be both musical and genuine. It should be soothing, the kind of background noise that usually helps me focus. Instead, it's slowly driving me insane. I close the laptop with more force than necessary and run my hands through my hair. This is exactly why I came to Juniper Falls. To find the silence I need to write again. But apparently, even in a mountain town with a population of 3,000, I can't escape the noise in my own head. The scent of bergamot drifts up through the floorboards, mixing with something floral I can't identify. Earl Grey with lavender, maybe? My stomach rumbles, reminding me that coffee and stale crackers don't constitute a proper breakfast. I could drive to that grocery store Willa mentioned. Or I could swallow my pride and accept her offer of tea. The pride wins, as usual. I grab my jacket and head downstairs, telling myself I'm just going for a walk. But somehow my feet carry me to the tea parlor's front door instead of the exit. The bell chimes as I step inside, and the warm atmosphere wraps around me like a hug I didn't know I needed. The morning rush has settled into a gentle lull, a few customers reading newspapers in the corner, an elderly woman knitting by the window, the soft murmur of conversation that somehow doesn't feel intrusive. Willa looks up from behind the counter, and her face lights up with a smile that's entirely too bright for my current mood. Her honey blonde curls are escaping from a messy bun, and there's a smudge of what looks like cinnamon on her cheek. "Lucas! Good morning." She sets down the tea tin she was organizing. "How did you sleep?" "I hope the noise level was okay. Mrs. Henderson walks her dog pretty early, and those church bells can be." "It was fine," I interrupt, then immediately feel like an ass for cutting off her genuine concern. "Sorry. Could I get some tea?" "Of course." Her smile doesn't dim despite my rudeness. "What kind?" "I have about 30 blends, or I could recommend something based on your mood." 30 blends. Of course she does. Something simple. Black tea. Perfect. Earl Grey? English breakfast? Or maybe something with a little more character. I have this wonderful Assam blend that's bold but not bitter. She's talking with her hands, gesturing toward the impressive display of tea tins that line the shelves behind her, and I find myself watching the way her eyes shift from golden to green as she gets excited about her products. "Earl Grey is fine," I say, cutting through her enthusiasm again. "Earl Grey it is." She turns to prepare my cup, and I take the opportunity to actually look around the space. It's exactly what I expected from someone like Willa. Cozy to the point of almost being cluttered, but in a way that somehow works. Mismatched vintage furniture, hand-lettered signs advertising things like Moonlight Dreams and Serenity Steeps, bookshelves tucked into every available corner. That's when I see it. My book. The Ashford Murders. Sitting on the shelf behind the register like it belongs there, W.R. Blake's name printed clearly on the spine. The dust jacket photo shows a shadowy figure in a fedora. Generic enough that most people wouldn't recognize me, but still my work. My pseudonym. My carefully constructed identity staring back at me from a small-town tea parlor. My chest tightens. "Here you go." Willa sets a delicate china cup in front of me, the Earl Grey steaming gently. "On the house, since it's your first official visit." I manage a nod, not trusting my voice. My eyes keep drifting to the bookshelf, and I wonder if she's read it. If she knows. "I love mystery novels," she says, as if reading my thoughts. "I've got a whole collection back there. Local authors, bestsellers, hidden gems, you name it." "Do you read much fiction?" The question hangs in the air like smoke. "Some. You should check out W.R. Blake," she continues, completely oblivious to the way my hands tighten around the teacup. "He writes these incredible psychological thrillers. Very atmospheric." I just finished The Blackwood Legacy and couldn't put it down. She just finished my book. She read my words, followed my plot twists, probably stayed up late turning pages. The thought should be gratifying. It's what every writer wants, isn't it? Engaged readers who lose sleep over your stories. Who can't wait for the next book to drop. Instead, I feel exposed. Like she can see straight through the facade to the mess of insecurities and writer's block that is Lucas Wilder. I should get going, I say, standing too quickly. Tea sloshes over the rim of the cup, staining the saucer. "Of course. But you barely touched your tea. Thank you for the hospitality." I pull a few bills from my wallet and drop them on the counter, probably twice what the tea costs. "Have a good day." I'm almost to the door when she calls out, "Lucas?" I freeze, my hand on the doorknob. If you ever want to talk about books or writing, I'm a pretty good listener. I don't turn around. Can't turn around. Because if I do, I might see something in her eyes that looks like recognition, and I'm not ready for that conversation. "Thanks," I manage, and escape into the morning air. I walk for an hour, following winding mountain roads until my paranoia settles into something manageable. By the time I return to the tea parlor, I've almost convinced myself I imagined the whole thing. Almost. The afternoon crowd is thinner. There's just a couple reading by the window and a man with silver hair arguing good-naturedly with a woman about proper tea brewing techniques. I slip toward the stairs, hoping to avoid conversation. Lucas! Willa's voice stops me cold. Perfect timing. She emerges from behind the counter carrying a wicker basket that smells like heaven. The scent of warm bread and cinnamon makes my empty stomach clench with hunger. I made extra blueberry muffins this morning, she says, holding out the basket. And I put together a little tea sampler. Consider it a proper welcome gift. I stare at the offering, caught between suspicion and genuine hunger. You don't need to. I want to. Her hazel eyes are earnest, no trace of hidden agenda. It's what neighbors do. Before I can protest further, the bell chimes and a woman with silver hair and a charm bracelet enters. She surveys the shop with the satisfied air of someone who knows exactly where she belongs. Hazel! Willa's face lights up. Perfect timing. I want you to meet my new tenant, Lucas Wilder. The woman, Hazel, turns toward me with sharp, assessing eyes that remind me uncomfortably of my third-grade teacher. So you're the mysterious writer Willa mentioned. I manage a nod, clutching the basket like a shield. How wonderful. We don't get many literary types in Juniper Falls. Her smile is warm but knowing. Speaking of which, I'm here to remind you about poetry night tomorrow, Willa. Novel Sips, 7 o'clock. I wouldn't miss it. Willa clasps her hands together. We're featuring local poets this month, right? Indeed. And we always welcome newcomers to share. Hazel's gaze shifts to me with the precision of a heat-seeking missile. You should join us, Lucas. Writers supporting writers and all that. Every instinct screams at me to decline. Poetry night sounds like my personal version of hell. A room full of people sharing their innermost thoughts while I sit in the corner, sweating through my carefully constructed anonymity. I'll think about it, I manage. Wonderful. Hazel's smile suggests she considers this as good as a yes. 7 o'clock. Don't be late if you decide to come. She bustles out, leaving me with the distinct feeling I've been expertly maneuvered. I hope you can make it, Willa says, her enthusiasm more subdued but no less genuine. It's really lovely. Very welcoming, no pressure to participate if you're not comfortable. She's chattering again, hands moving as she talks, and something about her enthusiasm makes my chest feel tight. Not with panic this time, but with something warmer and infinitely more dangerous. I should go, I say abruptly. Of course. Enjoy the muffins. She waves as I escape upstairs, her smile following me like sunlight. In my apartment, I set the basket on the counter and stare at it like it might explode. The muffins are still warm, and tucked beside them are small containers of tea with handwritten labels: morning motivation, afternoon calm, evening reflection. She made these for me. Not because she knows who I am, not because she wants something from me, but because she's genuinely kind. The realization is more unsettling than any recognition would have been. I pull out my phone and Google Poetry Night Novel Sips Juniper Falls, half hoping to find something that will give me an excuse to back out. Instead, I find photos of a cozy bookstore filled with smiling faces, people sharing stories over coffee cups, the kind of warm community I used to think was a myth. I've spent the last 2 years believing that isolation was what I needed. But sitting in this quiet apartment, surrounded by Willa's thoughtful gifts, I wonder if maybe the problem isn't other people. Maybe the problem is me. The muffin is perfect when I finally try it. It's tender and sweet with bursts of tart blueberry. It tastes like someone who cares made it, and that thought terrifies me more than any book recognition ever could.
Chapter 3. Willa. I just don't understand why Blake refuses to do interviews, Mrs. Henderson says, waving her copy of the Blackwood Legacy with enough force to rustle the pages. It's like he doesn't want people to know who he is. I pour her a fresh cup of evening reflection blend and try to keep my expression neutral. Around the cozy seating area I've arranged for tonight's book club, 8 familiar faces lean forward with the eager anticipation that comes with small-town gossip. Even when it's about a best-selling author none of them have ever met. Maybe he's shy, suggests Carol Morrison, adjusting her reading glasses. Some writers are very private people. Or maybe he's hiding something, counters Jim Caldwell with the dramatic flair that made him such a hit in last year's community theater production. Think about it. Mysterious pen name, no public appearances, those dark psychological plots. What if W.R. Blake isn't who we think he is? I nearly dropped the teapot. The writing is what matters, says Hazel from her perch in the corner armchair, ever the voice of reason. Not the author's personal life. But don't you think the mystery adds to the appeal? Asks Sarah from the copper kettle, pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders. There's something romantic about a reclusive genius creating these intricate plots from some hidden study. I busy myself with arranging the evening's treats, lavender shortbread cookies and mini scones with clotted cream, while listening to my neighbors dissect an author I chose for this month's book club weeks ago. The irony isn't lost on me that W.R. Blake seemed like such a safe, popular choice when I picked it, back when I had no idea that a mysterious writer would soon be living upstairs. The character development in this one is particularly strong, Hazel continues, steering the conversation toward the actual book. The way Blake reveals the detective's psychological trauma through seemingly unrelated observations. The tea parlor door chimes, cutting through Hazel's analysis. I look up expecting a late arrival, but instead see Lucas standing in the doorway like a deer caught in headlights. He's wearing his usual uniform, baseball cap pulled low, dark jacket zipped to his chin, but there's something different about his posture. Tense. Alert. Sorry, he says quickly, starting to back toward the door. I didn't realize you had an event tonight. No, please, come in. I call out before I can stop myself. We're just finishing up book club. You're welcome to join us. 8 pairs of eyes turn toward Lucas with the synchronized precision of a choreographed dance number. He freezes under their collective gaze, and I see his hands clench into fists at his sides. What are you reading this month? He asks, though his voice sounds strained. Mrs. Henderson holds up her copy with obvious pride. W.R. Blake's latest. Have you read him? Fear flickers across Lucas's face. Too quick for anyone else to catch, but I see it. Some, he manages. You should sit, suggests Carol, patting the empty cushion beside her. We were discussing whether Blake might be using a completely fabricated identity. Jim thinks he could be anyone. A professor, a retired detective, maybe even a woman writing under a male pseudonym. Lucas doesn't sit. If anything, he looks more like he wants to bolt. The man's a complete enigma, Jim continues, warming to his favorite subject. No social media presence, no author photos that show his face clearly, no personal details anywhere. It's like he doesn't exist outside his books. Maybe he values his privacy, Lucas says quietly. Privacy is one thing, Mrs. Henderson waves her hand dismissively. But this is practically paranoid. What kind of person goes to such lengths to hide from their own success? I watch Lucas's face carefully as she speaks, noting the way his jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. His hands, I notice, are trembling slightly. Someone who's been hurt by fame before, Hazel says thoughtfully, and Lucas's head snaps toward her with sharp attention. Success isn't always as wonderful as people imagine. Sometimes it comes with a price that makes anonymity seem like a gift. Oh, please, Jim scoffs. The man's a best-selling author, not a war correspondent. How hard can his life be? Lucas's hands curl into fists so tight his knuckles go white. There's pain in his expression, raw and real, and suddenly I understand that this isn't just about privacy or shyness. This is personal. Well, I say, standing and beginning to clear the empty teacups, I think that's probably enough Blake speculation for one evening. Thank you all for coming, and don't forget next month we're reading The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. The group takes the hint, gathering their belongings with the usual chatter about scheduling conflicts and recipe exchanges. Lucas remains frozen by the door, watching them file past him with the careful attention of someone studying potential threats. Mrs. Henderson pauses to pat his arm. You should really read Blake's work, dear. Such psychological depth. Lucas manages a tight nod, and I see his jaw clench. When the last member leaves, calling out goodbyes into the crisp evening air, I find myself alone with Lucas in the sudden quiet of the tea parlor. He's still standing by the door, still wearing that expression of barely controlled panic. "Are you okay?" I ask softly. He looks at me then, really looks at me, and I see something vulnerable in his gray eyes before he carefully shutters it away. "Fine," he says, but his voice catches slightly on the word. The silence stretches between us, heavy with unspoken questions. I can see him struggling with something. Whether to flee upstairs or stay, whether to trust or retreat. His hands are still trembling slightly, and there's a pallor to his face that speaks of genuine distress. "Lucas," I say gently, "would you like some tea? I have a blend called Serenity Steeps. It has chamomile, lavender, and a touch of lemon balm. It's very calming." He doesn't answer immediately, just stands there looking lost. But he hasn't left, which I'm taking as a positive sign. I prepare the tea with extra care, warming the pot first, measuring the loose leaves precisely. The familiar ritual calms my own nerves as much as I hope it will calm his. When I turn back, he's sitting heavily in one of the armchairs the book club vacated, his head in his hands. "Here," I say softly, setting the cup and saucer on the small table beside him. He looks up at me, and there's something raw in his expression that makes my chest tight. They have no idea what they're talking about. No, I agree quietly. They don't. Something shifts in his face. There's a flicker of understanding, maybe fear. "You know." It's not a question, but I answer anyway. "I suspected. Tonight confirmed it." He goes very still, like prey that's been spotted by a predator. "Are you going to tell them?" "No." The word comes out firm and immediate. "Of course not." "Why?" His voice is barely above a whisper. I settle into the chair across from him, choosing my words carefully. "Because everyone deserves the right to decide who they want to be, and when they want to be that person." Lucas studies my face like he's looking for a trap, some hidden agenda. I let him look, keeping my expression open and honest. He picks up the teacup and takes a careful sip. Some of the tension seems to leave his shoulders. "Thank you," he says finally. "For the tea?" "For not pushing." I lean back in my chair, tucking my feet under me in a gesture that feels natural despite the magnitude of this moment. "You're safe here, Lucas. Whatever brought you to Juniper Falls, whatever you're running from or trying to find, you're safe here." Something cracks in his carefully controlled expression. Not breaking, exactly, but softening. Like the first warm day of spring when winter finally loosens its grip. "I don't know how to do this," he admits quietly. "Do what?" "Be normal. Be a person. Not a brand or a mystery or a disappointment to readers who want me to be something I'm not." He stares into his teacup like it holds answers. "I came here to disappear. To write without all the noise. But you." He trails off, but I think I understand what he's trying to say. "I complicate things," I finish for him. "You make them real," he corrects, looking up at me with those storm gray eyes. The admission hangs between us like a bridge neither of us is quite ready to cross. But it's there now, built from honesty and chamomile tea and the quiet understanding that some secrets are meant to be kept. "Well," I say, offering him a smile that feels fragile and hopeful all at once, "real is kind of my specialty. Along with tea, obviously."
Chapter 4. Lucas. 3 days after the book club disaster, I wake up to the sound of something crashing downstairs. I'm out of bed and pulling on jeans before I fully register what I'm doing. The protective instinct surprises me. When did I start thinking of the tea parlor as something worth defending? But there I am, taking the stairs 2 at a time, following the sound of muffled cursing that's definitely coming from Willa. I find her in the main shop area, standing amid a pile of scattered tea tins and what used to be a wooden shelf. She's wearing dark jeans and an oversized cream sweater that's slipping off one shoulder, her honey blonde curls escaping from a messy bun in every direction. There's a dusting of flour on her sleeve that suggests she's already been busy in the kitchen this morning. Everything okay? I ask, and she spins around with a startled yelp. Lucas! I'm so sorry. Did I wake you? Her cheeks flush pink. The bracket finally gave out. I've been meaning to fix it for weeks, but you know how it is with procrastination, and I can fix it, I hear myself saying. She blinks at me. What? The shelf. I can fix it. I gesture toward the scattered mess. Do you have a toolbox? You don't have to. I want to. The words surprise me as much as they seem to surprise her. I mean, if you want me to. I'm handy with basic repairs. That would be amazing, Willa says, her face lighting up with genuine relief. Let me get the toolbox. And maybe some coffee? Tea? I made muffins this morning if you're hungry. Of course she made muffins. I'm starting to think Willa runs on some combination of caffeine, sugar, and pure determination to take care of everyone around her. Coffee sounds good, I say, crouching down to examine the broken bracket. And maybe one of those muffins. She disappears into the back, and I hear her moving around, the familiar sounds of morning preparation that have become the soundtrack to my days here. It's oddly comforting. The clink of ceramic, the whistle of the kettle, the soft humming that she probably doesn't realize she does. When she returns with a steaming mug and a plate of blueberry muffins that smell like heaven, I'm already assessing the damage. The bracket's completely stripped, I tell her, accepting the coffee gratefully. But the shelf itself is solid. I can reinforce the mount, maybe add a support bracket underneath. You actually know what you're talking about, don't you? She settles cross-legged on the floor beside me, close enough that I catch the scent of vanilla and bergamot that seems to follow her everywhere. My dad was big on the whole teach a man to fish philosophy, I say, testing the shelf's weight. Made me learn basic home repair before I was allowed to move out. It's the first personal detail I've shared willingly, and Willa seems to sense its significance. She doesn't push for more, just nods and takes a sip of her tea. What about you? I ask, surprising myself again. Did your parents teach you the tea business, or did you figure it out on your own? Bit of both. She breaks off a piece of muffin, offering me half. Dad ran things the traditional way for 40 years. Same 6 blends, same routine. When I took over, I wanted to expand the possibilities. Hence Moonlight Dreams and Serenity Steeps. She laughs, and the sound does something warm to my chest. You remember the names. Kind of hard to forget. I take a bite of the muffin, and it's perfect. Not too sweet, with just the right amount of blueberries. This is really good. Thanks. The secret ingredient is a touch of lemon zest. She watches me work as I measure the wall space for new brackets. So what's your story, Lucas? Besides the writing, I mean. Where did you come from before Juniper Falls? The question should make me tense up, but somehow it doesn't. Maybe it's the early morning quiet, or the way she's sitting there in her pajamas looking completely unself-conscious, or the fact that she already knows my biggest secret and hasn't tried to use it against me. All over, really, I say, marking measurements with a pencil. I don't stay in one place very long. Why not? I glance at her, expecting to see curiosity or judgment, but her expression is simply interested. Open. Easier that way, I say finally. No expectations. No complications. Sounds lonely. The honesty in her voice catches me off guard. Most people would dance around that observation, but Willa has this way of cutting straight to the heart of things. Yeah, I admit. It is. We work in comfortable silence for a while. Me drilling new holes. Her organizing the scattered tea tins by scent family. The morning sun streams through the windows, turning everything golden, and I realize this is the first time in months that I feel settled. Not anxious about deadlines or reader expectations or maintaining my carefully constructed anonymity. Just present. Can I ask you something? Willa says as I test the reinforced bracket. Sure. Why mystery novels? What draws you to writing about dark things? I pause, screwdriver halfway to the next screw. It's the kind of question interviewers used to ask, the kind I learned to deflect with practiced answers about plot structure and market appeal. But sitting here on Willa's tea parlor floor, surrounded by the scents of bergamot and fresh muffins, I find myself wanting to give her a real answer. Because mysteries have solutions, I say finally. No matter how complicated or dark things get, there's always an explanation. Someone did something for a reason, and if you're patient enough, clever enough, you can figure it out. Unlike real life. Exactly. I turn the screw, focusing on the task to avoid looking at her. Real life is chaos. Random things happening to random people with no satisfying explanation. But that's what makes it beautiful too, don't you think? Her voice is soft, thoughtful. The way you can be minding your own business, living your quiet little life, and then suddenly there's this person who changes everything. Something in her tone makes me look up, and I find her watching me with an expression I can't quite read. Is that what happened to you? I ask quietly. Someone changed everything? She's quiet for a long moment, turning a tin of evening reflection over in her hands. I thought so once, she says finally. Turned out he just wanted to change me. There's pain in her voice, old but still tender, and I feel an unexpected surge of anger toward whoever made her doubt herself. His loss, I say, and mean it. Her smile is small but genuine. Thanks. I finish mounting the shelf and test its stability. Solid. Good as new. Better than new, Willa corrects, running her fingers along the reinforced bracket. Stronger. We start replacing the tea tins, and I'm surprised by how natural it feels to work alongside her. She tells me about each blend as we organize. The inspiration behind contemplation, the customer who specifically requested something called Cozy Sunday Morning, the way certain scents pair with different moods and seasons. You really love this, I observe, watching her face light up as she describes a new blend she's working on. I do. Even when it's terrifying. She places the last tin on the restored shelf and steps back to admire our work. Dad thinks some of my ideas are too unconventional, but I figure if you're not pushing boundaries, you're just standing still. Sounds like good advice for writing too. Is that what you're doing here? Pushing boundaries? I consider the question seriously. I don't know yet. Maybe just trying to remember why I started writing in the first place. Which was because I had stories to tell. I look around the tea parlor, at the mismatched furniture, the hand-lettered signs, the cozy reading nook she's created in the corner. Before it became about deadlines and sales figures and maintaining a brand. Well, Willa says, gathering up the empty coffee mugs, maybe Juniper Falls is a good place to remember. We're not big on brands here. Just people being people. As if to prove her point, the bell chimes and an elderly man enters, calling out a cheerful good morning to Willa like they're old friends. She introduces me simply as Lucas, my upstairs neighbor, and the man immediately starts telling me about the best hiking trails in the area. No one asks what I do for work. No one seems to care about anything beyond the fact that I'm here, now, part of their small community's morning rhythm. For the first time in longer than I care to admit, I feel human instead of haunted. And it's entirely because of the woman with tea-stained fingers and a smile that could melt winter, who saw through my carefully constructed walls and offered me safety instead of exposure. I almost don't go to poetry night. I spend 20 minutes pacing my apartment, coming up with perfectly reasonable excuses. I have work to do. I'm not feeling social. I don't know anyone there except Willa and Hazel, and that's not enough to justify subjecting myself to an evening of strangers sharing their deepest thoughts in rhyming couplets. But then I hear Willa's footsteps on the stairs, and before I can talk myself out of it, I'm opening my door. She's wearing a soft blue dress that brings out the green in her hazel eyes, and she's carrying a small basket that probably contains homemade cookies or some other impossibly thoughtful contribution to the evening. You're going, she says, and it's not a question. I'm thinking about it. Good. Her smile is warm but not pushy. Want to walk together? It's only a few blocks. Novel Sips is exactly what I expected. The kind of place where coffee and literature blend seamlessly. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in the evening light, illuminating dark wood shelves lined with books. The scent of fresh coffee mingles with leather and paper, creating what feels like the perfect reader's sanctuary. About 20 people are scattered around the space, some at the long farmhouse table, others in comfortable chairs near the bookshelves, nursing drinks and chatting in the easy way of people who've known each other for years. I immediately want to leave. Lucas! Hazel appears at my elbow with the stealth of a woman who's spent decades wrangling reluctant participants. So glad you decided to join us. Come, let me introduce you to everyone. Before I can protest, she's steering me toward a group near the poetry corner, rattling off names I'll never remember and occupations that range from retired teacher to local electrician. They're all friendly enough, but I can feel my shoulders tensing with each introduction. And this is Lucas, Hazel announces. He's a writer. What kind of writing? Asks a woman with silver hair and paint-stained fingers. The familiar panic starts to build. Fiction. Mostly. How exciting. Anything we might have read? Probably not, I say quickly, and Willa appears beside me like she can sense my distress. Lucas is still settling in, she says smoothly. Let's let him get some coffee before the interrogation begins. She guides me toward the counter where a man with dark hair and thin-rimmed glasses is making drinks. That's Andrew, Willa murmurs. He owns this place with his sister Maggie. They're good people. Low-key. Andrew greets me with a simple handshake and no probing questions, just asks what I'd like to drink. I'm starting to understand why Willa feels safe here. These people have mastered the art of welcoming without overwhelming. The poetry reading begins, and somehow I end up in a chair next to Willa near the back. Close enough that I catch the scent of her perfume. Something light and floral that makes me think of spring mornings. The first poet is a teenager who reads about growing up in small towns with surprising sophistication. The second is an elderly man who shares a funny piece about his wife's gardening obsession. Each reader gets warm applause and encouraging comments. It's not what I expected at all. This is nice, I whisper to Willa during a break between readers. You sound surprised. I thought it would be more. I search for the right word. Pretentious. Poetry in Juniper Falls is more about connection than competition, she whispers back. People share what matters to them. A woman near the front reads a piece about losing her mother, and I see Willa blink back tears. When a local contractor shares a surprisingly tender poem about his daughter's first day of school, we exchange a look that says more than words could. There's something about shared experience, about sitting in a room full of people brave enough to expose their hearts, that makes the space between Willa and me feel charged with possibility. When Hazel announces a 15-minute intermission, I expect the familiar urge to escape. Instead, I find myself hoping the evening won't end too soon. What did you think? Willa asks as people mill around, refilling drinks and chatting. It's not what I expected, I admit. It's better. Want to get some air? The night air is crisp and clear, full of the kind of silence you only find in mountain towns. We walk slowly down Main Street, past the darkened shops and the soft glow of the tea parlor's windows. Thank you, I say as we pause near the fountain in the town square. For what? For rescuing me. Back there, when everyone was asking questions. Willa stops walking and turns to face me. You looked like you were about to bolt. I was. I shoved my hands deeper into my jacket pockets. I'm not good at this kind of thing. Being around people, making small talk, pretending to be normal. You seemed pretty normal to me tonight. That's because you were there. The admission slips out before I can stop it. Something shifts in her expression. A softness that makes my chest tight. Lucas. I haven't felt this comfortable around people in years, I continue, the words tumbling out now that I've started. Do you know what it's like, being successful at something that requires you to hide who you are? Everyone wants to know about W.R. Blake, but nobody wants to know about Lucas Wilder. But I do want to know about Lucas, she says softly. The simple statement hits me harder than any grand declaration could. That's what scares me. Because somewhere along the way, the pen name became more real than I was. Is that why you came here? To remember who Lucas is? I came here to disappear, I correct. But you. I take a step closer, drawn by the way the moonlight catches in her hair. You make me want to be found. She's close enough to touch now, close enough that I can see the flecks of gold in her hazel eyes. The space between us feels electric, charged with all the things we haven't said yet. I reach up to cup her face, my thumb brushing across her cheek. She doesn't pull away, just looks at me with an expression so open and trusting that it breaks something inside my chest. I lean in, drawn by gravity and moonlight and the simple truth that I've never wanted anything as much as I want to kiss Willa Merritt in this moment. But at the last second, I stop. Because what if I'm wrong? What if this kindness, this acceptance, is just who she is with everyone? What if I'm reading more into her actions than she means? What if I don't deserve something this real? I drop my hand and step back, and the loss of contact feels like a physical ache. I should go, I say quietly. Lucas. Thank you for tonight. I'm already backing away, putting distance between us before I can do something stupid. I'll see you tomorrow. I leave her standing by the fountain, bathed in moonlight and probably wondering what in the world just happened. Back in my apartment, I stare at my laptop screen and try to write. But all I can think about is the way Willa looked at me, like I was worth knowing. Like I was worth staying for. And the terrifying possibility that she might be right.
Chapter 5. Willa. Feel better, Leah. Don't worry about tonight. I'll figure something out. I hang up the phone and stare at it for a long moment, trying to process what just happened. Food poisoning. Just when I'm finally pulling off my teas and treats event, an evening of custom tea and dessert pairings that's supposed to showcase my vision for the tea parlor's future. And now I have no treats to pair with anything. I sink onto one of the counter stools, feeling the familiar flutter of panic that comes with the possibility of spectacular failure. Dad's voice echoes in my head, "Some of your ideas are too unconventional, and I wonder if this is the moment he'll be proven right." The bell chimes, and Lucas appears. He's wearing a dark green Henley that brings out his eyes, and his hair is still damp from what I assume was a morning shower. "Morning," he says, then stops when he sees my expression. "What's wrong?" "Leah just called. Food poisoning." I gesture helplessly at the phone. 8 hours before my teas and treats event. 30 people are expecting handcrafted pairings, and I've got tea covered but nothing to pair it with. Lucas is quiet for a moment, studying my face. "What kind of desserts were you planning?" Leah was going to make these delicate butter cookies with different flavor profiles: lavender, Earl Grey, cardamom. Things that would complement the tea blends without overwhelming them. I run my hands through my hair, probably making it even messier. I could try to find another baker, but everyone good is probably booked solid, and anyone available probably isn't. I could help. I stop mid-ramble. What? I could help. With the cookies. He shifts slightly, looking almost embarrassed. I have a recipe. My grandmother's. They're simple but good. Buttery, not too sweet. Easy to flavor. You bake? Some. When I was a kid, my grandmother taught me. Said every person should know how to make something that brings joy. His mouth quirks in what might be a smile. Haven't done it in years, but muscle memory might kick in. I stare at him, this man who's been carefully guarding his privacy for weeks, now offering to spend hours in my kitchen saving my event. Are you sure? It would be a lot of work, and people will be here at 7. We have 4 hours. How many cookies do we need? Maybe 10 dozen? Different flavors to match the tea blends? Doable. He's already rolling up his sleeves. Do you have butter? Flour? The basic stuff? We can grab more at the store. 20 minutes later, my kitchen is transformed into a cookie production line. Lucas moves through the space with surprising confidence, measuring ingredients while I gather flavor extracts and spices. "Try this," he says, holding out a spoon with cardamom rose dough. I taste it, and my eyes widen. "That's perfect. How did you know the exact amount of rose water?" "Lucky guess." But there's something pleased in his expression that tells me it's more than luck. "What tea are you pairing this with?" "Evening garden. Black tea with rose petals and a hint of bergamot. Should work well. The cardamom will bridge the spice notes." As the afternoon progresses, we fall into an easy rhythm. Lucas handles the baking while I prep the tea service, but we keep gravitating toward each other. He asks about flavor profiles. I sneak tastes of cookie dough and offer suggestions. "Behind you," he murmurs, sliding past me to reach the oven, and his hand brushes my lower back in a touch that sends warmth shooting through me. When I catch him watching me arrange teacups with a soft expression, our eyes meet and hold for a moment too long before we both look away, flustered. "These smell incredible," I say as he pulls the third batch from the oven. The delicate butter cookies are infused with Earl Grey and lemon zest. "They should. Your kitchen smells great." He sets the tray on the cooling rack. "Actually, your whole place always smells amazing. Like comfort and possibility mixed together." The compliment catches me off guard, and I feel heat rise in my cheeks. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my tea blends. I wasn't talking about the tea blends. The words hang between us, loaded with meaning I'm not sure I'm ready to examine. But before I can respond, he's already turning back to the next batch of dough. By 6:30, we have 12 dozen perfect cookies arranged on vintage platters, each flavor carefully labeled and positioned next to its tea pairing. The parlor is set up with small tables draped in cream linens, tiny tasting cups, and handwritten cards explaining each combination. "We did it," I breathe, surveying our work with amazement. "You did it," Lucas corrects. "I just helped with the panic baking." "Are you kidding? You saved the entire evening." I turn to face him, suddenly overwhelmed by gratitude and something deeper. "Why did you do that?" "Help me, I mean?" He's quiet for a moment, flour dusting his dark shirt, hair mussed from hours of work. "Because you needed it. And because..." He pauses, seeming to wrestle with his words. "Because watching you create something beautiful matters to me more than I probably should admit." The confession steals my breath. Before I can respond, the bell chimes with our first guests, and the evening begins. By 9:30, the last guest has left with promises to tell all their friends about the wonderful evening. The tea parlor feels different in the aftermath. Quieter, but charged with the energy of success. Empty teacups and crumb-scattered plates tell the story of 30 people who spent 2 hours discovering new flavor combinations and chatting with neighbors they'd never really talked to before. "That was incredible," I say, surveying the gentle chaos with satisfaction. "Did you see Mrs. Henderson's face when she tried the Earl Grey cookies with the bergamot blend? I thought she was going to cry with happiness." Lucas is stacking chairs, but he pauses to smile at the memory. "She asked for the recipe 3 times. And Harold wants to know if you'll cater his retirement party." 2 more people signed up for next month's event before they left. I can't keep the excitement out of my voice as I collect the scattered tea cards. "This actually worked, Lucas. We pulled it off." "You pulled it off," he corrects, but there's warmth in his voice. "I just helped with emergency baking." "Are you kidding? You charmed half the room. I saw you explaining flavor chemistry to those teenagers like you were hosting your own cooking show." He ducks his head, but I catch the pleased expression that crosses his face. They were genuinely curious. It's been a while since anyone asked me about anything other than plot twists and publication schedules. I pause in my cleanup, struck by the wistfulness in his tone. "You miss it, don't you? Talking about things you actually care about." "More than I realized." He sets the last chair in place and turns to face me. "Thank you for letting me be part of this tonight. For letting me just be Lucas." The way he says his name, like it's something precious he's just remembered how to hold, makes my chest tight with emotion. You were never just anything, I say softly. Not to me. Something shifts in the air between us. The parlor feels suddenly intimate, lit only by the candles I'd placed on each table and the soft glow from the street lamps outside. The scent of bergamot and vanilla still lingers, mixing with the faint sweetness of butter cookies and something else. Something that might be possibility. Lucas takes a step toward me, then another, until we're standing close enough that I can see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. Willa, he says, and my name sounds different in his voice. Careful. Reverent. Yes? I've been thinking about last night. About what almost happened by the fountain. My heart starts beating faster. What about it? I keep wondering what would have happened if I hadn't been such a coward. You weren't a coward, I whisper. You were scared. There's a difference. He reaches up slowly, giving me time to pull away if I want to. But I don't want to. I want this, whatever this is, more than I've wanted anything in a very long time. His hand cups my cheek, thumb brushing across my skin with infinite gentleness. I'm still scared, he admits. But I'm more scared of missing this chance. Lucas. Can I kiss you? The question is barely audible, breathed into the space between us. Please? Instead of answering with words, I rise on my tiptoes and close the distance between us. The first touch of his lips is soft, tentative. A question more than a statement. But when I sigh against his mouth, something in him seems to break free. His other hand slides into my hair, tilting my head as he deepens the kiss, and suddenly we're not tentative anymore. He tastes like Earl Grey and possibility, like secrets shared in candlelight and promises whispered in the dark. His lips are warm and surprisingly soft, moving against mine with a reverence that makes my knees weak. When he traces my lower lip with his tongue, I hear myself make a small sound of pleasure that seems to echo in the quiet space around us. The scent of vanilla and bergamot swirls around us, but underneath it I catch something that's purely Lucas, clean and woodsy, like pine trees and fresh air and pages of books left open in sunlight. It's intoxicating, this combination of familiar comfort and thrilling newness. My hands find the front of his shirt, fisting in the soft fabric to anchor myself as the world tilts and shifts around us. He responds by pulling me closer, one arm sliding around my waist until there's no space left between us. I can feel the solid warmth of his chest, the rapid beating of his heart that matches my own. When we finally break apart, both breathing hard, he rests his forehead against mine. His eyes are dark in the candlelight, pupils dilated and focused entirely on me. Willa, he breathes, and the raw wonder in his voice sends warmth flooding through my entire body. That was. I start, then lose the words. Perfect, he finishes softly. That was perfect. We stand there for a moment, wrapped in each other and the golden glow of candles, neither of us quite ready to let go of whatever spell we've woven around ourselves. This is the first place I've been able to breathe in a long time, Lucas says finally, his voice rough with emotion. And you're the first person who's made me want to stay somewhere longer than a night. The confession hits me like a physical force, hope and terror warring in my chest. Because I can hear the truth in his voice, but I can also hear the fragility. Like he's offering me something precious that could shatter if I'm not careful enough. How long? I whisper against his lips. I don't know. His thumb traces the line of my jaw. How long do you want me to stay? It's the kind of question that could change everything, and we both know it. The kind of question that comes with risks and promises and the terrifying possibility that this fragile thing between us might actually be real. But looking into his storm gray eyes, seeing the vulnerability he's trying so hard to hide, I realize I'm tired of being careful. Tired of protecting myself from the possibility of hurt when the possibility of joy is standing right in front of me, asking permission to stay. As long as you want, I tell him, and watch his face transform with something that looks like relief and wonder combined. When he kisses me again, softer this time but no less meaningful, I taste the beginning of something that might just be worth the risk. Even if it scares me more than I care to admit.
Chapter 6. Lucas. The words are flowing again. For the first time in 8 months, I'm sitting at my laptop without the crushing weight of expectation pressing down on my shoulders. It started 3 days ago, the morning after the kiss. I woke up with a scene fully formed in my head. Not the contrived, market-tested scenarios I'd been forcing myself to outline, but something real. Something that felt like it mattered. The protagonist isn't a detective this time. She's a woman who inherits her grandmother's tea shop and discovers that the previous owner was hiding secrets in plain sight, encoded in blend recipes and customer notes. It's part mystery, part romance, part love letter to small towns and the way they keep their stories alive in the most unexpected places. It's also unmistakably inspired by Willa and Juniper Falls, though I've changed enough details that only I would recognize the source. I've written 15 pages in 3 days. And for the first time since my career began, I'm writing because I want to tell this story, not because I have a contract to fulfill. A soft knock on my door interrupts my flow. I save the document and call out, "Come in." Willa appears in the doorway carrying a tray with what looks like lunch. She's wearing a soft yellow sundress that makes her hair look like spun gold, and she's got that slightly nervous expression she gets when she's trying not to impose. "I brought you a sandwich," she says, setting the tray on my small dining table. "And some of that Earl Grey blend you liked. You've been up here for hours, and I thought." She trails off, suddenly seeming unsure. "Thank you." I close the laptop and join her at the table, surprised by how hungry I actually am. This is perfect. "How's the writing going?" she asks, settling into the chair across from me while I eat. "Good. Really good, actually." I take another bite, considering how much to share. "I'm working on something new. Different from my usual stuff." Her face lights up with genuine interest. "Different how?" "Less dark. More." I search for the right word. "Hopeful, I guess." It's still a mystery, but it's more about connections than crimes. About how people create meaning together. That sounds wonderful. There's something soft in her expression. "Would you let me read some of it?" I promise I won't judge if it's rough. The request should make me nervous. I never show work in progress to anyone. Not editors, not beta readers, certainly not people I'm falling in love with. But something about Willa's expectant face makes me want to share this piece of myself. "Okay," I hear myself saying. "But remember, it's a first draft. Very rough." I pull up the opening pages, angling the screen so she can see. She reads silently, one hand wrapped around her teacup, occasionally making small sounds of interest or approval. Watching her read my words is more intimate than any kiss we've shared. I can see the exact moment she recognizes elements of her own life in the story. "Lucas," she breathes when she reaches the end of what I've written. "This is beautiful." "You think so?" "I think it's the most romantic thing anyone's ever written about a tea shop." She looks up at me with something that might be awe. "The way you describe the blending process, the connection between scent and memory. It's like you understand the soul of what I do here." Her words hit me with unexpected force. For so long, success meant sales figures and review scores and maintaining my mysterious brand. But sitting here watching Willa's face, it feels like the first time my writing has actually mattered. "I should let you get back to it," she says, standing and gathering the empty dishes. "Thank you for sharing this with me. For trusting me with it." After she leaves, I stare at the laptop screen for a long moment before returning to work. The words come even easier now, flowing like water finding its way downhill. I lose track of time completely, immersed in this world where everything makes sense and love stories have happy endings. It's nearly 5 o'clock when I finally stop to stretch and check my phone. I've written another 8 pages. Good pages, pages that feel alive in a way my work hasn't for months. I'm scrolling through my notifications mindlessly when I see it. A tag notification on the Instagram account my publisher insists I maintain. I rarely check it, usually just let my publicist handle the occasional generic post about upcoming releases. But this notification is different. Someone has tagged a W.R. Blake official in a photo. My blood goes cold as I click on it. The photo shows me sitting at my usual table with my laptop open, looking up at the camera with an unguarded smile. In the background, Willa is visible behind the counter, and the tea parlor's literary decorations are prominently featured. The caption reads, "OMG you guys. I found W.R. Blake. He's been hiding out at this adorable tea shop in NC. The owner said he's been working on a new book here and the place has become like his personal writing retreat. Hashtag W.R. Blake, hashtag mystery, hashtag solved, hashtag tea shop, hashtag writer's retreat." Posted by a book lover Jin. 2 hours ago. The post already has over 800 likes and dozens of comments. My hands shake as I scroll through them. The tea shop owner is so lucky. Imagine having a best-selling author as your regular. Smart business move letting him use the space. Bet she's getting tons of publicity now. I'm totally booking a trip to Juniper Falls. Maybe I can sit at the same table. And then, the comment that stops my heart. The owner, Willa, was so sweet when I asked about him. She said having a real writer there has brought such wonderful energy to the space and that she's learned so much about the creative process. You can tell she's really proud to be part of his story. Hashtag support local. I stare at the screen until the words blur. Willa talked to this person about me. About my writing, about my presence bringing wonderful energy to her business. She told a stranger she was proud to be part of my story. I sit in the growing darkness of my apartment, listening to unusual activity in the tea parlor below. More voices, the bell chiming constantly, footsteps everywhere. When I finally peer through my window, I see people taking photos of the interior, posing at my table, pointing at the mystery novel display. Willa moves through it all with practiced grace, serving tea and chatting with customers who are clearly there because of the Instagram post. She had to know this would happen. The writing I shared with her this afternoon, the way her eyes lit up, was she already calculating how to use it? The knock comes just after 8 o'clock. I know it's her before I open it. Willa stands in the hallway looking frazzled, hair escaping from its bun. "Lucas, I am so sorry. I had no idea that girl was going to post that photo. I've been trying to reach out to her, to ask her to take it down, but the damage is already done." I step back, letting her in but not closing the door. Half the literary world has seen it by now. I didn't want this to happen. She reaches toward me, then drops her hand when I step away. "Lucas, you have to believe me. I would never intentionally expose you." I want to believe her. But the evidence is right there on my phone. Her words, broadcast to hundreds of people, turning my sanctuary into a tourist destination. "It doesn't matter what you meant," I say finally. "My cover is blown, my privacy is gone, and it's because you couldn't resist talking about your famous tenant." It takes me less than an hour to pack everything I own into 2 duffel bags and a backpack. I've gotten good at this over the years. Living light, keeping attachments to a minimum, making sure I can disappear quickly when things get complicated. Which they always do, eventually. I should feel relieved. This is what I'm good at. Running before anyone can hurt me worse than they already have. Moving on before the disappointment can sink in too deep. Instead, I feel hollow. My laptop bag sits by the door, heavy with the weight of the story I was writing this afternoon. The story about connection in small towns and tea shops that hold secrets in their blend recipes. 15 pages of hope that now feel like fiction in the worst possible way. I can still hear a few voices downstairs. My table is probably still occupied by tourists taking selfies and ordering whatever blend W.R. Blake supposedly drinks. I pick up the small tin of evening reflection that Willa left in my welcome basket weeks ago. The handwritten label is slightly smudged, probably from her fingers when she was creating the blend. For a moment, I consider taking it with me. Then I set it back on the counter and grab my bags. The hallway is quiet as I make my way to the back exit, avoiding the main entrance that would take me through the tea parlor. I don't want to see the patrons. I don't want to see Willa's face when she realizes I'm actually leaving. My rental car starts on the first try, which feels like the only thing that's gone right today. I throw my bags in the back seat and sit for a moment, staring up at the apartment windows above the tea parlor. The light is still on in what used to be my room. Now it's just another space for Willa to rent out to someone else. Someone who won't come with complications or secrets or the kind of baggage that ruins everything good. I put the car in drive and pull away from Juniper Falls without looking back.
Chapter 7. Willa. Is he really gone? I look up from the tea tin I'm organizing for the third time this morning to find Mrs. Henderson peering at me with the kind of concern that comes from watching someone's heart break in real time. Yes, I manage, forcing my voice to stay steady. Mr. Wilder moved out yesterday evening. Oh, honey. She reaches across the counter to pat my hand. I'm so sorry. I know you two were. She trails off, but I know what she means. In a town like Juniper Falls, there's no hiding when you're falling in love. Especially when it's happening right in the middle of your own tea parlor for everyone to witness. It's fine, I lie, turning back to my inventory with more focus than loose leaf Earl Grey requires. He was just renting the apartment. People move on. Mrs. Henderson makes a sound that suggests she doesn't believe me any more than I believe myself, but thankfully she doesn't push. She orders her usual chamomile blend and settles at her favorite table, though I catch her glancing at my empty apartment stairs more than once. It's been like this all morning. Customers asking about the writer, wanting to know if he's coming back, if they can see where the famous W.R. Blake was working on his new book. Each question feels like salt in a fresh wound, but I smile and redirect them to the tea menu, because what else can I do? Tell them that I fell in love with a man who thinks I'm capable of manipulating him for business gain? Then I've spent the last 12 hours replaying every conversation we had, wondering what I could have done differently? The bell chimes, and I look up hopefully, thinking maybe he's changed his mind. Instead, it's Harold, carrying what looks like a small package. Morning, Willa. This was delivered to my shop by mistake. He sets a padded envelope on the counter. Addressed to Lucas Wilder, apartment 2B. Figured you'd know how to get it to him. My throat goes tight as I stare at the package. He moved out, Harold. I'm not sure where he went. Oh. Well. Harold scratches his beard thoughtfully. Want to hold on to it for a while? In case he comes back for his mail? Sure, I whisper, though the idea of Lucas coming back for anything feels impossible right now. That would be good. After Harold leaves, I find myself staring at the empty stairs again. Yesterday morning, Lucas was up there writing, sharing his story with me, looking at me like I was something precious. Now there's nothing but silence and the lingering scent of the evening reflection blend I'd left in his welcome basket. I'm so lost in my misery that I don't notice Dad arriving until he clears his throat behind me. You look terrible, sweetheart. Good morning to you too, Dad. I turn around to find him studying me with the kind of parental radar that can detect heartbreak from 3 counties away. Hazel told me your young man moved out yesterday, he says, settling onto one of the counter stools. Want to tell me what happened? The whole story spills out of me then. The Instagram post, the crowds of tourists, Lucas's accusations about using him for publicity. I tell him about Lucas's paranoia, his certainty that I was exploiting his presence for my business, the way he looked at me like I was a stranger when he left. That must have been devastating, Dad says when I finally run out of words. I just don't understand how he could think that of me. My voice cracks despite my best efforts. How he could believe I was capable of manipulating him like that. Dad is quiet for a long moment, turning his wedding ring around his finger the way he does when he's thinking hard about something. Fear makes people stupid sometimes, he says finally. Makes them see threats where there aren't any, betrayal where there's only love. I look at him in surprise. It's not like Dad to be philosophical about relationships. You think he was scared? I ask. I think he was terrified, Dad says. A man doesn't run from something that good unless he's convinced it's going to hurt him worse than leaving does. But I would never. I know that, sweetheart, he says gently. But he doesn't. Not really. Not in the way that matters when you're making decisions from a place of panic. I slump against the counter, feeling the weight of the last 24 hours settling into my bones. It doesn't matter now anyway. He's gone. Is he? Dad asks, and something in his tone makes me look up. Or is he taking the long way around to figuring out what he really wants? Before I can ask what he means, he stands up and walks over to study my tea display, running his fingers along the hand-lettered labels with something that looks like pride. You know, I owe you an apology, he says without looking at me. For what? For doubting this. He gestures around the tea parlor at the mismatched vintage furniture, the creative blend names, and the cozy reading nook I created in the corner. For making you feel like you had to prove yourself every day instead of supporting what you were building. My throat goes tight. Dad. I spent 40 years running this place the same way, selling the same blends, keeping everything exactly as it always was. He turns to face me, and there's something soft in his expression I haven't seen in months. You've made it something special. Something that brings people together, makes them feel welcome, gives them stories to take home. Even if it attracts the wrong kind of attention sometimes? I ask quietly. Especially then. He comes back to the counter, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Lucas was attracted to this place for the same reason everyone else is. Because you've created something real here. Something worth staying for. Then why did he leave? Because sometimes the people who need love the most are the ones who have the hardest time believing they deserve it. Dad's voice is gentle but sure. That doesn't mean you stop offering it. What am I supposed to do? I feel tears gathering in my eyes. He doesn't trust me. Doesn't believe that my feelings are real. Then show him they are. I stare at him. How am I supposed to do that? He's gone, Dad. I don't even know where he went. You do what you do best, he says simply. You create something. You blend something that tells the story you couldn't tell when he was standing here breaking both your hearts. The idea takes root in my mind before I can stop it. A blend for homecoming. For second chances. For the kind of love that waits patiently even when everything seems lost. Besides, Dad continues, his eyes twinkling with something that might be hope, something tells me we haven't seen the last of him. After Dad leaves, I find myself alone in the tea parlor as the afternoon light starts to fade. The tourist rush has finally died down, leaving just the familiar comfort of my own space and the lingering scent of bergamot and possibilities. I pull out my blending supplies and start working by instinct more than design. Black tea as the base. Something strong and grounding. A touch of vanilla for sweetness, cardamom for warmth, and just a hint of lavender for peace. Something that tastes like forgiveness and hope and coming home after a long journey. As I work, I think about what Dad said. I think about Lucas's hands shaking when he shared his story with me, the way he looked when he talked about not knowing where W.R. Blake ended and Lucas began. Maybe Dad is right. Maybe this isn't over. I finish the blend and write a label in my best handwriting, "Come home." Not because I expect Lucas to see it, but because sometimes the act of creating something beautiful is enough to keep hope alive. 3 days later, I'm arranging the morning pastry display when I hear the bell chime behind me. I don't look up immediately. I've gotten good at managing my disappointment when it turns out to be just another customer instead of the person I'm secretly hoping for. We're not open for another 10 minutes, I call over my shoulder, focusing on getting the scone placement just right. But I can make you a quick cup of tea if you need something. I was hoping for coffee, actually. My hands go still. I know that voice. The careful cadence, the slight roughness around the edges that comes from too little sleep and too much worry. I turn around slowly, hardly daring to believe it. Lucas stands in the doorway, looking like someone who spent 3 days driving around mountain roads trying to talk himself out of coming back. His hair is disheveled, his clothes wrinkled, and there are dark circles under his gray eyes. But he's here. "Hi," he says quietly. "Hi." My voice comes out as barely more than a whisper. We stare at each other for a long moment, neither of us quite sure how to navigate this. I didn't make it very far, he says finally. I ended up at this little lodge in Elk Ridge. Family-owned place, reminded me a lot of here. Were you planning to stay there? I tried. He runs a hand through his hair, making it even messier. The owners were nice enough. Quiet room, good coffee, no one asking questions. Everything I thought I wanted. But I couldn't write. His laugh is self-deprecating. Turns out I wasn't running from the noise, Willa. I was running from the silence. The kind of silence that comes when you push away the only person who's made you feel human in years. My heart does something complicated in my chest. Hope and hurt and love all tangled together. Lucas. I need to say this first. He takes a step closer, then stops, like he's respecting the invisible boundary between us. I was wrong. About everything. I let my fear turn you into someone you're not because it was easier than admitting how terrified I was of caring about someone this much. I want to interrupt, to tell him it's okay, that I understand. But something in his expression tells me he needs to get this all out. I've spent 3 years convinced that everyone who gets close to me wants something from W.R. Blake instead of Lucas Wilder. And when that post went viral, when I saw all those people coming here because of my pen name. He shakes his head. I panicked. I made you the villain in a story where the only real villain was my own inability to trust. You were protecting yourself, I say softly. I understand that. Do you? He looks at me with something that might be wonder. Because I've spent the last 3 days trying to understand it myself. Trying to figure out why I was so ready to believe the worst instead of fighting for the best thing that's ever happened to me. The words hit me like warmth spreading through cold hands. Lucas. I know I have no right to ask this, he continues, his voice getting rougher with emotion. I know I hurt you, accused you of things that were completely unfair. But Willa, this place, you're where I can breathe. Where I remember who I am underneath all the noise and expectations and fear. He pauses, looking around the tea parlor like he's trying to memorize every detail. I want to finish my book, he says. The one I started writing here, about tea shops and small towns and the way people create meaning together. But more than that, I want to see what story we can write for ourselves. Together. If you'll have me. The question hangs in the air between us, fragile and precious and full of possibility. I think about the Come Home blend sitting on my shelf, about Dad's words about fear and second chances, about the way my heart has been aching for 3 days straight. The apartment's still available, I say finally, and watch relief flood his features. Though I should warn you. The rent comes with a few conditions now. Anything. No more running when things get complicated. No more assuming the worst about my motives. And if another Instagram influencer shows up, we handle it together. Deal. His smile is small but real. What else? You have to let me read the rest of your book as you write it. Not because I want to exploit it for business purposes, but because I genuinely love your stories. That's not a condition, that's a gift. He takes another step closer. Anything else? I pretend to consider this, even though my heart is racing. You have to let me make you tea whenever you're stuck on a scene. And you have to promise to tell me if you're feeling scared or overwhelmed instead of bottling it up until you explode. I can do that. He's close enough now that I can see the sincerity in his gray eyes. And Willa? I love you. Not the tea parlor owner who might help my career, not the woman who makes me feel like a better version of myself, though you do that too. I love you. The real you, with your pun-filled blend names and your flower-dusted aprons and your way of making everyone feel like they belong. The words I've been holding back for days finally spill over. I love you too. Even when you're having trust issues. He laughs and the sound fills up all the empty spaces in my chest. Especially then? Especially then. When he kisses me, it tastes like second chances and morning coffee and the promise of stories yet to be written. His hands cup my face like I'm something precious, and I think about how sometimes the best love stories are the ones where you have to choose each other twice. So, I say when we finally break apart, both of us breathing hard. Ready to write that second chapter? With you? Lucas rests his forehead against mine, and his smile is bright enough to light up the whole tea parlor. I've been ready since the day I met you. I just needed to stop running long enough to realize it. I reach for the kettle, already planning the perfect blend to celebrate new beginnings. Something with hope and warmth and just a touch of magic. The kind that happens when two people decide that love is worth the risk. After all, the best stories always begin with someone brave enough to stay. Epilogue. Willa. Juniper Falls, 1 year later. The autumn light filters through the tea parlor windows as I wipe down the last table, humming while the scent of my newest seasonal blend, Spiced Harvest Hope, wraps around me like a warm hug. It's been a good day. The first book proofs arrived this morning. The Tea Shop Chronicles by Lucas Wilder. His real name, not W.R. Blake. He decided months ago that he was tired of hiding behind a pseudonym. I'm organizing tomorrow's tea selections when I notice it. It's a small wooden display box near the register, one I definitely didn't put there. The brass nameplate reads, "For my tea lady." Inside, nestled in cream silk, is a tin labeled Forever Brew. A blend for lifetime love, crafted with bergamot, vanilla, cardamom, lavender, cinnamon, and endless devotion. Next to it, in soft velvet, sits a ring. An antique Art Deco piece with an emerald-cut diamond flanked by 2 smaller baguette stones, all set in delicate platinum filigree. Do you like it? I spin around to find Lucas in the doorway, wearing the blue sweater that makes his gray eyes look like storm clouds. He's got that nervous hopeful expression he gets when sharing something important. Lucas, I breathe, hands shaking. What is this? It's a proposal. He moves closer carefully. If you'll let me actually ask the question. You made a tea blend for this? I had help. Your dad taught me the base recipe, your mom suggested the bergamot. Hazel insisted on cardamom for new beginnings. His smile is soft and nervous. They all knew. Your dad choked up when I asked permission. I laughed despite the tears gathering in my eyes. Of course he did. Willa. Lucas reaches for my hands, his fingers warm and steady. A year ago, I came here trying to disappear. I thought I needed silence to find myself. But you showed me something better. He drops to one knee behind the counter, among the tea tins and vintage teacups. You showed me that home isn't a place you run to when you're broken. It's a person who sees all your pieces and loves you anyway. You taught me that the best stories are the ones we create together. His voice gets rougher with emotion. You saved my writing, but more than that, you saved me. Willa Merritt, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life learning your tea recipes and waking up every morning in the place that taught me how to breathe? Yes, I say, the word strong and certain. Yes, of course, yes. He slides the ring onto my finger and stands before he kisses me. I taste forever on his lips, warm and sweet and spiced like the blend he created for this moment. Behind us, a tea timer dings softly. Is that our cue? Lucas asks, forehead against mine. I think it's our soundtrack, I reply, turning off the timer. The sound of perfectly timed love. He spins me around right there in the middle of the shop, both of us giddy with happiness and the promise of all our tomorrows. So, I say, admiring how the ring catches the light. When do we try the Forever Brew? Right now. Lucas reaches for the kettle, already knowing exactly how I like my tea. It's got all your favorite notes, plus lavender for the dreams we'll share and cinnamon for adventures still to come. When he hands me the cup, I take a sip and taste our entire story. The sweetness of first meetings, the complexity of misunderstandings, the warmth of forgiveness, and underneath it all, the steady strength of love that chooses to stay. It's perfect, I tell him. We're perfect, he corrects, pulling me close for another kiss that tastes like forever and feels like coming home. Later that night, we're curled up on the couch in Lucas's apartment, our apartment now, I suppose, sipping Forever Brew and half watching the late local news from Asheville. I'm admiring my ring in the soft lamplight while Lucas traces lazy patterns on my shoulder. Significant forecast error that left residents of the greater Asheville area unprepared for this week's severe weather system, the anchor is saying. I glance up at the screen just as the footage switches to a press conference. A man in a rumpled suit stands behind a podium, looking like he hasn't slept in days. He's handsome in a weathered sort of way, with dark hair and tired eyes that suggest he's carrying the weight of the world. Or at least the weight of an entire region's weather expectations. Chief Meteorologist Sawyer Whitaker addressed concerns about the forecast discrepancy earlier today. The reporter continues as the man on screen fields aggressive questions from other journalists. Poor guy, I murmur, watching him deflect blame while clearly taking full responsibility. He looks like he could use a break from all that pressure. Lucas glances at the screen, then at me, and I catch that familiar glint in his eyes. The one he gets when he's plotting a new story. Maybe he could, Lucas says softly, pressing a kiss to my temple. Good thing there are places where people can disappear for a while. Find some peace and quiet. I lean back against his chest, smiling as the news moves on to sports scores. Outside our window, autumn leaves swirl on the mountain wind, dancing toward destinations unknown. Good thing, I agree, and take another sip of our perfect blend. The end. This has been Tea for Two. Written by Susanne Ash. Copyright 2025 by Susanne Ash. Production copyright 2025 by Susanne Ash. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe if you want me to put more of my books on YouTube. Visit my website at www.susanneash.com for more of my books or find me on Amazon.